All right, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome. My name is Emily. I'm the admissions representative here at Montcalm Community College. And just a brief introduction to Zoom, just keep in mind that there's the chat box. You can write any questions that you have throughout the presentation. Of course, welcome to ask questions out loud too during our question and answer. And welcome to Montcalm Community College. We'll be talking about transfer today. So we're going to go ahead and just start with a brief video hearing from some students who started here at Montcalm Community College and then transferred on to a four-year institution to finish up their degree. And I'm going to reshare to make sure that there's some sound in there.
My name is Catherine Hayes-Camp. I currently live in Ionia, Michigan, and I completed an Associate of Arts degree here at MCC. My favorite class at MCC was my psychology class, actually all of my psychology classes, because I took all four of them while I was here. Jessica Snyder, she was my instructor for all the psychology classes, and she really instilled a deep interest and passion for psychology in me, and the psychology classes here were what really developed my passion for psychology. Yeah, the transfer process went fairly smooth with me. I met with advisors here as well as advisors at the college I transferred to, just to make sure that all of my classes transferred and everything. They made sure that I had everything I needed to transfer over there. I just think it's a really great opportunity. You can save some money and get your gen eds out of the way before you transfer.
I changed my plans of originally being a veterinarian after I took a nature study course with one of the teachers here, Heather West. She really inspired me to think about conservation and kind of bent my ear towards the environment side of science. And getting that start here locally, it really helped, me from going to an expensive school like Michigan State, doing something that I thought I wanted, and I ended up changing my mind entirely just from one small course to doing something I knew I would really love. I really like Montcalm Community College. When I first started here, my first semester here, it was nice because it's small, it's local to where I live. The people here really wanted me to succeed, and like the academic advisor I met with, she pointed out to me that I can take my core classes here like I wanted to get my four-year degree. She told me about the Michigan transfer pathways, and with that in mind, I was able to figure out what I was doing with guidance from teachers, and I moved on to a bigger university.
All right, so that's a little bit from our previous students who have transferred from MCC. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to one of our wonderful counselors, advisors at MCC, Tuda.
Yes, hello, my name is Tuda Skogseth, and as my background is showing my hometown in Trondheim, Norway, I thought that would be an appropriate place to start, because I was about to say you can go anywhere from here. It used to be a slogan we used a while back at MCC, and there's some truth to that. I just want to make sure I cover a few things that transfer students usually will see. So I'm going to share my screen as well to show some of the important resources that we have available for students. So let's see here. So if you look at if you look at here this page, I got the catalog up first, and the catalog website is catalog.montcalm.edu. That's what I always remember. So if you just think about catalog first, then you'll get straight there. And then under catalog, there are a couple of different places you can go to look at what degrees we offer. And one of them is the one here that says degrees and certificate. The other one is further up saying academic programs. And so if we click on academic programs, you'll see a full listing, an alphabetical listing of the programs that we offer. I personally prefer the degrees and certificates because it's organized a little bit easier. And you'll see right at the beginning the degree and certificate programs where we have the Associate of Arts, the Associate of Science, and then the Associate of Science and Arts. If we'd looked at this just about a year ago or so, maybe 2 now, we would not have seen any of these Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degrees. They are newly developed pathway transfer programs that the state of Michigan has been behind. Michigan Community College Association and the counterparts from the 4 years got together and said, hey, what can we do to make transfer smoother for students? And so if you know that you're looking at going into arts or communication, psychology, biology, business, criminal justice, exercise science, or then potentially the pre-animal health technology, actually, that's not one of those pathways, but the other ones are pathways, but you don't know what school you're going to, then this is a pretty good way to start, because this one, any school that's participating in these degrees will accept this associate's degree as a starting point for their degree there. And so it's a good place to start. But for most transfer students, for the longest time, we used the Associate of Science and Arts. And I want to share it just quickly because it has the core that's part of the Michigan Transfer Agreement. It's got 2 English classes, Freshman English 1 and Freshman English 2. All our students need to take those. 1 class for oral communication, 2 lab science classes, and they have to be from different disciplines, which means that if you take 1 biology class, the other class cannot be one of the biology classes. It has to be chemistry or physical science. Math, you need 1 of these. Social science, we're set with, well, I should say for math, there are 3 main pathways. 1 is a quantitative reasoning, which is kind of the math for non-math majors in many ways. It's the pathway that's the least heavy on the formal math and more heavy on the way that you think in math. That's why it's called quantitative reasoning. The college algebra direction, that includes the pre-calc and the calculus and analytic geometry 1 and 2. That's for the students that are going into sciences. And then finally, introductory statistics, used in a lot of different disciplines. I think some of the main ones where you'll find statistics would be for us here, nursing, but social sciences use statistics a lot, business use statistics a lot, and so forth. So those are kind of the pathways. And so the trick with math is that you wanted to have an idea of this early on so you can get there. I think that's important. And finally, social science, you need the American Political System class and 1 other social science class. And then for humanities and fine arts, you need 2 from different disciplines. Here's the kicker though, only 1 can be a foreign language. So even though it seems like French and German could be different disciplines, they're all counted as foreign languages. So you can only do 1 to count for there. Now, the cool thing about this degree is right down here, elective credits as needed, because all the credits you've done up to this point add up to about 30 credits or so, maybe a little bit more, which means you need 60 credit hours to get an associate's degree. So that leaves close to 30 credit hours that are electives, which means that any other class that you wanted to take from the lists here or any other classes outside of that can also go in and count here for that associate's degree. So that's a really helpful piece for it. But if you just look at this, it really doesn't tell you much about what you need to do to transfer. And that really is what I was going to talk about. And I haven't lost track of it. But these classes that are here are the classes that go into the Michigan Transfer Agreement, which was the precursor to those pathway programs that I started out by showing you. The Michigan Transfer Agreement replaced a very old agreement that was the macro agreement that started back in '72, so that's a long time ago. The Michigan Transfer Agreement replaced it in 2014, I believe, is when it got all together, and it's simplified things, and so these 30 credit hours should go in as 30 credit hours towards the general education requirements at the 4-year school. Ideally, we'd like to say that will cover all the gen eds at the 4-year school. That's not quite the case. Just about every program will have another upper level English class, plus some other little minor things that they want you to take. So usually when you look at a bachelor's degree, you're looking at about 40 credit hours for general education, 40 for the major, and then 40 electives, roughly. Now, there will be a lot of individual variances in that, but that's kind of the rule of thumb in general. So the gen eds, you covered most of them with the 30 credit hours you transfer from us. So that's a good place to start. So the question then is, how do I get even more? How do I find out even more about transferring? And I'm going to sneak up here and go to our regular website, the montcalm.edu website, because that's going to have a lot of good information for you as well. I could click my way to the transfer page, but that's a little difficult. So I'm just searching for transfer right here. And that gives me the list. And the first link that pops up here is transfer information. And that will take you to the main transfer information page. And you'll see the biggest new item is that we have a new transfer agreement with Purdue University Fort Wayne. And so we got Rob Spohr as our Vice President for Academic Services and Stacy Young, who's our President, with a representative from Purdue University here talking about that agreement and what came out of that. But what's important here is that you have a lot of good information about transfer when you scroll down a little bit. You'll have information about transfer visits, and they are virtual right now. We used to have transfer representatives come to campus. Due to COVID, that's not an option at this point, but they do come in virtually, and so we have a list of who's coming from where and when, and how you can join. So that's definitely something to look at if you know you're looking at transferring. It's always a good page to check in with again. You got a little bit of information about if you transfer out, you got to send an MCC transcript, and if you transfer classes in, there are some course expiration dates. But we have the Michigan Transfer Agreement. I kind of already went through that when I talked about the Associate of Science and Arts. And then we have the transfer pathways, which we covered already. And then we have transfer articulation agreements and transfer institution and guides. Articulation agreements are important because articulation agreements gives you the opportunity to say, okay, I want to take classes at this school, or I want to take classes at MCC. I want to make sure they go to the school that I wanted to go to and transfer them the way I want them to. And so we have kind of divided it in based on pathways. So if I looked at business, for instance, we can look at a transfer agreement or an articulation agreement for, well, let's take a look at the business management to business administration with Davenport. Well, they will, and Davenport has it so that you can actually do the drop down, and then you'll find Montcalm and you'll be able to see the articulation plans that they have. The nice thing with articulation agreements compared to transfer guides, which is on the next tab, is that they guarantee pretty much that the classes that you take here will transfer to the four-year school exactly as is. They are signed by us and they're signed by the four-year institution, so they are safer to, or they're safe to use, I should say. Most of the transfer guides, which is what we get to, if we go to the other page here, let's see here. We'll go back just a hair longer. The transferring institution and guides, you'll have links to their sites. If I go to Grand Valley, for instance, they will have the transfer. We have a link to their transfer guide page. Once again, we got to select school, look at Montcalm, and if I look at business here, you'll see a list of classes that you can take at MCC that they will take at Grand Valley. They're not necessarily as set in stone as they are when you have an articulation agreement that is signed. But most of the schools that do this, in Grand Valley in particular, are really, really good at following their guides to say, yep, if you have a guide, if you got a printed guide with you, when you go to that school, you should be okay using that as a guideline for classes here. That being said, you should always start talking to the school you're looking at transferring to fairly early as well. They are the ones that will be able to say yay or nay to the classes. As a rule of thumb, when you do transfer, you need a C or better in every class that you want to transfer in. There are some exceptions for some schools, but most of the time it's a straight C or better to be able to transfer that class. And that's really a good, so these places on our webpage are really a good place or really good places to go to look around. All of the information for their transfer contacts and for transfer programs that they have are found on these web pages. So if you go to our regular website and you search transfer, that is a good way to get there. The last thing I'm going to show you before I open up for questions here is the Michigan Transfer Network, which is listed as a resource here at the bottom. This is a really helpful tool because sometimes you might just want to know how a class you're looking at taking transfer. You're not quite sure where you want to go yet, but you've heard good things. I saw in the video we showed, there was someone talking about the psychology classes, and you've heard good things about Jessica Snyder, and you want to take an extra class. You've done the general psychology class, which transfers easily and is part of MTA. Say, well, how will it work if let's say I want to take the abnormal psychology. I want to see how it transfers. So you can go, you can find Montcalm Community College, and you can search on their subject, and we're going to search for psych, and we don't have to put down any regular or any receiving institution. And I'm going to put down 225 for the abnormal psychology class, and you see, okay, this transfers fairly easily just about to any school that you might be looking at around here. And this is a nice tool to use just to see how well does the class I'm thinking about transferring. And if you see, so this is really good because just about everything in here says abnormal psychology. So transfer in as a specific class as well. Sometimes you'll just say department credit or something similar. That means you get credit for it, but you don't get that specific course. So if you're looking at something in your major, you may or may not need to take a similar course at that school. But as long as it comes in as a specific course, usually you're in really good shape when it comes to transferring. So that's really what I wanted to make sure that I showed you. There's a ton of resources available. We also have counselors and advisors available here in the Student Success Center. It's me and Brandy who are counselors, and then we have Lisa Gardner, who is an advisor down here as well. So if you have any questions about transferring, you want to go somewhere and you don't know how or don't know the process, please don't hesitate to come and meet with us. And we do appointments both virtually and we're back to doing some in person too, which I'm excited about.